Welcome, everybody, to the Channel Vision Magazine webinar featuring Quest Technology Management in the first part of a six-part sales boot camp of educational webinars. The focus for this event is how using Quest's building blocks can help sell integrated services. I'm your moderator, Bruce Christian, Senior Editor of Channel Vision Magazine. Our presenter is Adam Burke, the Quest Technology Management Vice President of Sales and Partnerships. So with that, let me turn it over to Adam Burke.
Thanks, Bruce. Appreciate it very much. And want to thank everyone for joining today. Again, my name is Adam Burke. I'm the Vice President of Channel Sales and Partnerships at Quest Technology Management. And today, like Bruce was mentioning, we're going through how to simplify the complex IT sales by leveraging Quest building blocks. So without further ado, we'll jump right into it. I think what's really important here is understanding what you're going to be getting from today. So we're going to go over a little bit of our qualification practice, how we assess how to engage, what's a good opportunity, what's not, and really kind of how to start that business outcome-based conversation. And critical to any business outcome-based conversation is going to be identifying pain points for your clients and where you can really help them do more with their existing IT environments. Some knowledge you're going to gain today is obviously how to leverage the building blocks, how to put together service offerings, how to cross between different silos, and maybe expand a little bit of what you're doing for your clients today. We're always a land and expand, help organizations do more with their existing footprint, help them do more in different areas, and change the game a little bit for our customers and our partners. We're going to have some outcome-based conversations. And really, we want to talk today, the goal of today is taking the complex and boiling it down to the simple building blocks that need to be addressed and how you can do that to help your client achieve more. So super excited about this bootcamp series. This was sparked from some engagements we had with some of our partners around training and investing in the partner and in the channel ecosystem. So love to share what we're up to and what we're seeing successful out there in the market. Gonna start with a little Simon Sinek here as far as, you know, what's the why? Why are IT environments getting more and more complex? Why is it good to help simplify things, and what Quest believes? So our why and what we're seeing as why this is an important topic for the channel and for our partners and for folks to help out with is we're seeing a significant lack of competence and capability in this SMB market and in the middle market delivering IT solutions. More and more systems are getting tied to more and more diverse platforms. More vendors are entering the market, whether it's a cybersecurity practice or infrastructure or hosted assets. These platforms are becoming more and more interconnected, and the technology and the capabilities are exceeding the existing IT folks' ability to execute on them. Nothing against them, just the speed of that change, the rapidness there is far outstripping the individual's abilities to keep up with it. Especially in the middle market. Another why for us from our strategy standpoint is a lot of organizations and a lot of people are kind of built on this do-it-yourself model. If you're the type of person who goes to Home Depot and thinks that you can, you know, retile your bathroom or upgrade your kitchen or things like that, that's very similar to what a lot of folks in the IT market think. They think that they can just go to the Home Depot of IT capabilities. They can buy a couple of servers here, they can buy some CPU here, and they can remodel their kitchen. Unfortunately, what we're seeing, and we've seen this over the years, and this is a great opportunity for all of us on this call, about 70% of those engagements, about 70% of those initiatives fail to meet their stated objective or even reach 50% completion of their initially targeted goals. There's all sorts of different metrics out there floating around in the channel right now. One I heard recently was about 80% of these projects, of digital transformation projects, fail. And not to be cynical, but that failure can be your opportunity. They sometimes have to go through the process of trying to do something on their own, trying to make the change on their own, trying to make the migration, trying to integrate the call center, trying to move from G Suite to Microsoft or whatever. They might have to make that move and fail before they want to bring in a third party. So it's okay to let that happen. It's okay to let them know that you're there and you have the ability to help should they need it going forward. But you can let them know those are complex moves, but sometimes they got to fail in order to bring you in. The last item here is the vendor community is quarterly driven. They're private equity and marketplace stock market driven. They got to hit their numbers. They got to sell as much stuff as they can to your clients as possible. So if it's a server, if it's a capacity sale in the cloud, if it's a licensing SKU, they're going to push as much as they can to that do-it-yourself shopper who walks through the Home Depot front doors. They're going to basically pump them up that, hey, you got this. You got this. You're the smartest person in the room. You can totally handle this complex integration project. Look at all the cool features you'll get once you get this system up and operational. Nothing against the vendors. We've been partnered with vendors for a very long time, manufacturers. They're a huge part of our ecosystem. But unfortunately, sometimes they lean into the idea that the do-it-yourselfers can really do it yourself. And that can be a challenge, especially in the middle market, especially how fast these solutions are progressing. So Quest, we built and the reason I'm going into this a little bit is I think it'll help understand and help the folks on the call understand where we're coming from and how we put together our business model. Our selling strategy is pretty simple. It's built a lot on what's called the Blue Ocean strategy. So Blue Ocean was written by Renee Malburn and another gentleman, Chen Kim. Awesome strategy. I was afraid of butchering that French name, and then so I totally messed up the next name there. So I apologize for that. But a great book. If you haven't read it, Blue Ocean Strategy. A lot of our engagements are built around changing the game with end users on how they're competing. About 80-90% of the market kind of focuses in the red ocean. Let's go and compete. Let's go and outbid, outcompete our competitors and different specific verticals. What we like to do is we like to take the complex solutions and the complex requirements and the business outcomes and see if we can change the game a little bit to help our customers achieve what they're trying to do, but not on necessarily a line item by line item. Hey, I want to save 5% on my licensing and 3% on that on that server and 2% here. What we try to do is we try to bundle those services together and give them more of a business outcome, and it can change the game a little bit. So red ocean versus blue ocean, a lot of what we do is built on that. Some qualifications that we have when we're engaging in these complex IT solution sales is that the customer's aware that they have a challenge or a pain point that they need to address. They have, obviously they can afford to invest in resolving that, and they're okay working with Quest in our building block strategy model. So some organizations really believe that they need to work with a certain vendor for security, a certain vendor for infrastructure, a certain vendor for cabling, and kind of silo themselves. And that's a strategy, and that's completely acceptable. But that's something that we try to evaluate when we're looking for partners and customers. Hey, what do they believe? How do they go to market? And where can we touch? Where can we meet? And where can that Venn diagram overlap where we can help them? So not a very technical conversation when going through the qualification. It's really how do people want to engage and how would they like help? Now, when you're going through understanding what your clients are looking for assistance with and where they may potentially need help, the power of selling integrated services is every single one of these building blocks on the right-hand side of your screen is not only a building block, but it's a keystone into that client's environment, right? If you withdraw one of those different blocks, the entire circle can fall apart. Right. So Quest, when we built out this practice, we built out this practice of integrated and building block strategy based on what our customers were asking for help with when they were asking for help. We didn't do the Wayne Gretzky thing and try to skate proactively to where the puck was going. Some organizations do that. What we do is we try to listen to what the customers are trying to achieve, and then the marketplace, right? The different vendors, the OEMs, the manufacturers, they're all out there competing to go to where the hockey puck's going to be. We're going and we're pulling from those suppliers to deliver on these capabilities. So you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen here, we have products. Quest has been a VAR for 40 plus years, and each one of these solutions is built on some type of a product. So cybersecurity services, if an organization is trying and struggling to understand where do they invest from a cybersecurity standpoint, you first have to understand what do they have in place today, and what are they trying to go tomorrow, and what do they need to build upon. So understanding what products they have already deployed can help you understand what type of cybersecurity you can layer on to that environment. Now, cybersecurity is right here next to disaster recovery. Our disaster recovery services tie directly into cybersecurity. So when you're talking to someone about what products do you own today, and when you're talking to them about what are you doing for cybersecurity today, those types of conversations are directly connected to their disaster recovery and their business continuity initiatives. So if you're talking to people who are making decisions for that business, all of these different building blocks are interconnected. Every single one can pivot you to another. So when you're in that conversation, try to move away from, at least what we found successful, is try to move away from positioning the cybersecurity solution that you want to talk about today. Try to move away from positioning the disaster recovery conversation that you want to position, and move into how are you approaching cybersecurity? What are you doing to build upon what you've already invested in today? If something goes south and you can't connect to your data center or to your cloud instance, how are your people working? And then let them tell you what they're dealing with and how you can engage, because you can pivot from any of these. You can pivot from a disaster recovery to a professional services conversation based on what that client is looking for help with. So it's critical to help simplify that idea when you're talking to them about what's important to them from an IT perspective. What are they struggling with? What are they dealing with on a day-to-day basis? You might have walked into that organization thinking you're going to have a conversation around cybersecurity, and it can pivot very quickly to an application development conversation. And all of these building blocks here cross support each other. So when you're going into a complex IT engagement, when you're having that discussion around what they're actually trying to do from a business perspective, it's really, really powerful to know that you have a partner like Quest that supports all of these different building blocks and can help roll with that customer conversation and that business outcome-based conversation. Some of the fastest areas of growth that we're seeing right now, and I wish I knew why, I don't, are infrastructure services. So the physical aspects of a technology environment, the structured cabling, the video surveillance, the managed wireless, all of those types of physical asset devices that are being deployed out on site, and then application development. So those are the fastest growing areas that we're seeing. I don't know why, but application development, we're seeing organizations trying to do more with their current investment. Quest has built out an application development team that goes through an agile process and different sprints with clients and really helps them get the most out of their current investment. So the application development team, for whatever reason, that silo is hitting very, very heavily right now, especially in the channel. A lot of mid-market accounts might not know where to go for application development expertise. And what's fun about the application development building block is that touches everything that the customer does, no matter what. Application development is going to integrate with their cybersecurity practice. It's going to integrate with their cybersecurity policies. So when you're in a cybersecurity conversation, There's the proactive policy-based framework conversations that you have to have. Then there's also the operational conversations that you have to have. And those can be two different tracks, but application development is going to flow down both of those tracks at the same time. So what are you trying to do in application development? How is that going to affect your cybersecurity policy? How is that going to affect your cybersecurity practice from a day-to-day base, from on an ongoing basis? Application development touches everything. A lot of folks don't know where to go to get the most out of their current investments. This could be things around Microsoft. This could be things around Salesforce. This could be areas of Oracle. This could be areas of SQL databases and migrating to the cloud. All of these things, folks are dealing with how to get the most out of their current investment. And application development is at the top of the stack, right? So when you're looking at the IT stack, applications at the top. And then infrastructure, that's the baseline. That's the beans and bullets, and that's the main infrastructure that organizations are building for all these other products, their communications platform, their cybersecurity, their managed services, professional services, all that's going to reside along the physical infrastructure. So for whatever reason right now, people are trying to get the most out of what they've currently built, and there's a significant infrastructure refresh going on. But as you're having those conversations with folks who are going through an infrastructure refresh or going through an application development initiative, that touches everything that they do. And just know that you have an organization, you have a partner with Quest that can support, manage, maintain, or deploy any of those solutions across that stack. So really exciting opportunity. Billions and billions of dollars, trillions of dollars to be made out there in this space, helping organizations integrate their product purchases, layer in their cybersecurity, and then maintain business operations, consistently. So great opportunities there, and we've seen a huge uptick in organizations trying to consolidate which vendors they work with, and a powerful offering that the channel has with integrated service providers and what Quest can bring to your team is we can do all of this under one SLA or under multiple engagements, but give them a consistent experience across the board. Which brings us kind of to our top 10 reasons of why taking a building block approach can be helpful. There's really ideas around security and consistency there, right? So having a consistent security protocol around your application development and around your application rollouts, having that vendor integrated and talking directly to your team can really help. Oftentimes we kind of talked a little bit about the blue ocean and the red ocean strategy, and sometimes people hear customization and they instantly think that customization means expensive. We hear that all the time. They're like, well, you guys aren't standardized on a specific one vendor approach, therefore you're going to be expensive. What we found is that we actually, by putting the building blocks together, so for example, if a customer wants to purchase a capacity in a cloud environment, they want to buy a bunch of Azure or AWS compute, they also want the connectivity, and then they want edge cloud. That can take multiple vendors to deliver. Whereas with a Quest kind of consolidated approach, we are a supplier for the hyperscalers, right? We can bill for those services and put that on our SLA. We can connect that in a redundant fashion, either through Express Route or Direct Connect. And then we can also provide the on-premise equipment as a service. And we can wrap that all up into a service level agreement and give them a consistent consolidated experience with one phone call to make and one service provider to deal with for that entire experience. Now, is it possible to maybe save a couple points on different pieces of that? Yes, but then there's also the soft cost that detract from that as far as managing multiple vendors, having the finger pointing between, hey, that's your issue, that's your issue. What we try to do is streamline that and give a consistent experience. So that also is the idea of consistent and constant monitoring, and basically that customization isn't always a more expensive version of those building blocks. It also allows organizations to scale. I know customization and scalability doesn't necessarily, those aren't always the exact, those always don't run in parallel, but it allows organizations to focus on what's critical for them and outsource specifically what they don't want to do. The building block approach, we win opportunities all the time because we compete against organizations that have specific skewed offerings. This is the way we do something. This is the scope of work, and this is specifically what you need to do in order to accommodate this purchase. We're the kind of the inverse of that. We ask, what parts of this service would you like us to deliver? If it's the patching and the monitoring, great. If it's the patching, remonitoring, and remediation of issues, great. If it's, hey, I need you guys to deploy someone once a month to this data center or to this location and achieve X, Y, and Z issues, we can do that as well, because not only do we have a managed service practice, we have a professional services practice and the ability to dispatch technicians internationally. So when organizations are struggling with, hey, it'd be great if I could consume, these 10 things, but they're dealing with vendors who only have a couple of those bullet points, where Quest comes in from a building block approach is, we're not going to tell them to rip and replace what they have. We're not going to tell them this is the only way you can do something. We build a custom SLA that allows that organization to then go scale on what they want to focus on. So I know customization and scalability. So, line item 4 there and line item 9 can kind of seem like conflicting points, but it allows that organization to scale and allows them to operate what they want to do and give us the tasks that they don't. So that can be something as simple as patching or help desk or monitoring and alerting. A lot of cybersecurity situations we're seeing right now, vendors come in and they say, hey, this is the prescribed way you need to do this in order for us to provide this MDR or XDR solution for you. Where Quest comes in from a building block standpoint is, yeah, do we have our go-to MDR, XDR platforms? Absolutely, we do. And I think we have another boot camp coming up in a few weeks that's going to go into our cybersecurity practices. But we can come in and just provide monitoring, alerting, and management of what the client has invested in today to give them the ability to pivot off of that and move to what they want to focus on. And we can just come in and do that monitoring and management of what they've already invested in today. Big differentiator between, hey, we got to rip and replace, and this is the one way you have to do it, which a lot of our competitors and organizations, they kind of scale that way. We're more than comfortable, and it's part of our building block approach, to come in and support what the client has today, what they've invested in already, what they have deployed, what's working for them. But maybe they don't have the personnel or the skill sets to manage and get the most out of that investment. So we can layer in that support, which gives them a lot of abilities to then, okay, cool, I got someone watching my back on my XDR solution. They're helping me tune my firewalls. They're making sure my DNS and all my policies are up to date. They got that piece of it. I'm going to go over here and work on our next release of our application. Right, so it allows them to scale, gives them the flexibility they need without having to contort themselves to some providers' requirements. So we had a really fun one that happened that I want to give as an example of an integrated services opportunity. It was a very complex deal. The nature of it was pretty robust. It was a little over 150 locations around the United States. It had multiple building blocks from our pie chart earlier. It had infrastructure services, right? So we had to do structured cabling and deployment at over 100 sites. It had a technology component. So we need to provide managed wireless for thousands of residents across 150 different locations. So we had to provide the technology to get that done. Then we had to provide the professional services and the engineering to deploy that in an effective way and make sure that all of those users got the appropriate capacity and the appropriate bandwidth and all that kind of fun stuff. So we had to basically deploy and manage and implement that. And then we had to manage it day two. We had to support end users help desk questions, password resets for over 20,000 residents around the United States. So we looked at this problem, and what the customer, they had an idea what technology they wanted, but they were struggling because they wanted a consistent cost per user model that they could deploy across over 150 locations. And the challenge is you have 150 locations around the United States. You're going to have different costs for cabling infrastructure. You're going to have to deal with a cabling vendor. You're going to have to deal with a technology, a hardware vendor, right? You have to purchase that. You have to drop ship to those locations. You have to then work with each individual community to cable those locations, deal with the residents. Then you have to deal with a professional services organization to deploy the logical deployment of that system, right? Do all the network deployment, do all the stand up of the new circuits, make sure that the routing protocols are flowing effectively, make sure that the switches are configured, all that professional services work, right? So we have the infrastructure vendor, we got the hardware vendor, we have the professional services vendor potentially, then you have the day two managed services component of it. And the managed service component has to match the technology that was selected, and the help desk that it supports the end users has to be part of that for a consistent delivery as well. So you take all of those parts and pieces, and the customer was really struggling with how do we get a consistent delivery for our communities in a cost per resident model. So what Quest was able to do with a partner was source the technology, source the hardware, deploy the cabling, deploy the professional services, layer in the managed services and the help desk, and provide that end customer with a consistent monthly recurring charge per resident that included all of those components. So it saved them basically going out and sourcing cabling vendors for every location. It saved them figuring out, okay, where are we going to dispatch and how are we going to deploy this technology at over 150 sites. So taking our infrastructure services team, taking our professional services, our managed services, and those groups, consolidating that all into one deliverable, a consistent deliverable for the client, was an immense savings, very, very successful. And that provider, they were a provider of residents to folks all around the country. You know, they marked up the services and are making a good amount of gross profit themselves based on providing this service for their residents. So when you get to have that business outcome-based conversation, and then you can take the different building blocks that go into a complex managed Wi-Fi deployment, it goes well beyond, hey, you know, what kind of technology should we source for this Wi-Fi deployment, right? You have the cabling aspect of it, you have the carrier selection aspect of it, you have the deployment, the professional services integration, and then the ongoing managed services. So you can take all of that and put it together, deliver it for your customer. It becomes a win-win for all parties. Quest wins because we get an amazing customer, a happy partner, and a large contract over a 5-year period. The customer gets to provide managed Wi-Fi for their clients and for their residents, so that's fantastic. And then obviously it's a win-win all around for all those parties. So that's an example of an integrated service model. It can be simple. It can be, hey, we need managed firewalls deployed at 20 locations. We need carrier services bundled into that. So help us, select the appropriate providers there, bundle that together in the MRC, and then day two managed services and SOC support on those on that deployment. That's where we win. That's where I think we can help you change the game, is by packaging those solutions together. And kind of there's not a lot of organizations out there that can deliver across those different silos. So something that we see often, when we're chatting with partners, is sometimes they don't feel comfortable asking that question, that business outcome question, or hey, what are you struggling with, and would you like some help in this area? You're all professionals. You've all earned your right at the table to ask that question. You're in the meeting. Some of the biggest value that you can provide your customers is being curious about what they're doing, why they're doing it that way. Sometimes when firms have to articulate what they're doing, why they're doing it, helps them flush out some areas where maybe they can improve, or maybe they're looking for third parties to come in and talk to them about a different way to approach it. So I would, above and beyond anything that I could convey to anyone who's interested in getting into complex IT, building block sales, is get curious. Be curious about what they're looking for help with, where they're looking for help, how they've done it before. Have they considered doing, working with third parties? How was that experience? How is that the current third party they're working with? Get curious about it. You've earned the right to be curious about it. And that can usually spark some great questions. Another takeaway that definitely want to make sure you guys know is you have a partner who can come in and deliver on these would you, could you, how would you approach this type of a conversation. I've heard Quest referred to in two ways. I'll take them both positively. One of them was the dumpster of the cloud. The other one was the Swiss Army knife, because we get involved in all sorts of complex solutions. And hey, I don't know, I'm not sure who does this, but let's call Quest and see if they'll do it. We've built that reputation in the channel with our partners that, hey, I'm not quite sure who will do this, but let's give Adam, let's give Brian, let's give Gary and David a call, our partner team a call, and say, hey, how would Quest approach this? Could you help with this? The complex isn't really that complex. They're pretty standard building blocks that go into every product delivery, every managed service delivery. It's people, it's technology, and those are the foundational building blocks. How much time is this going to take, and what components need to go into this in order to make it successful? So everything else is kind of just experience driven from there. So you have an organization that is here. If your clients are willing to engage a third party, get curious about that, ask them questions, and then just know that you have an organization that has your back that can come in here and have those complex discussions. Really want to appreciate and say thank you for everyone who's joined us today around this topic. If there are any questions or any details we can help dive into, would love to. We do a lot of capability reviews. So if from a building block perspective, if there was one of those keystones that caught your interest or you'd like to learn more about it, please check out our webpage or our partner portal. We're putting more and more content in our partner portal all the time. We're putting in our resources page, there's some quick videos about different service offerings that we have and how to approach them. We got some great feedback from our partners that you guys like, quick short videos. So we're trying to build that content library for you about how to win certain in certain aspects where you might not be working today. So again, thank you very much for joining us today. And I don't know if Bruce, if I lost the entire audience, or if there are still some folks around that we could raffle off, that'd be, appreciate that.
Yeah, let's keep that slide up there for everyone who's still on, so that they can take down that information to get ahead of or to get a hold of you. And now let's get into some questions. If you could synthesize for us again, what are the basics of Quest's building blocks approach?
Yes, the basic of the building blocks approach is really understanding the customer outcome, and then what parts and pieces from our environment do we need to put into that service level agreement or a one-time purchase. So if it's a professional services opportunity, what engineers and what responsibilities would they like us to have, and what parts of that project do they want to have? So it starts with the business outcome. How do they see this happening, and how would they like this to happen? And then we basically divvy up the roles and responsibilities from there for either a one-time delivery or an ongoing managed service. So it's really about who's got it and who's got what piece of the delivery. It's people, its technology. So are we providing the technology, or does the customer provide the technology? Do they have the existing security platform that they want us to monitor, manage, and maintain? Or would they like Quest to deliver that as a service, or sell it to them as a one-time transaction and then manage it going forward? It's really a couple different ways you can put that together, but it really comes down to who's delivering the technology, and then what are the roles and responsibilities of the people who are involved in that project.
Okay, now Adam, you were discussing the building blocks and how you need to be able to pivot from one product to another. But I was wondering if you have any tips for actually beginning the conversation with the customer.
So when we get on a call with an organization, we love to understand how they're doing it today. How are you managing this today? If it's a security conversation, how are you receiving alerts? If it's a policy discussion, who's responsible for drafting your policies? If it's a disaster recovery conversation, tell me a little bit about your backup strategy. Have you tested them recently? Have you gone through that? Have you gone through an event? Have you had to recover from a backup? Sometimes people will fall into the trap of I need to be the expert on this topic. I need to be the expert on this specific technology. I would avoid against that, because there's such a diverse amount of technology out there in different platforms. I would be curious to understand how they did it, and then understand if there's any challenges they're experiencing with that, and then maybe bring in expertise to go over it, because you're never gonna be an expert in all of it, and by the time you get certified in one thing, it's 10 versions ahead. So as a salesperson, just be curious about it, and then know you have the experts on the back end to bring in to help execute once you flush out what they're actually trying to do.
Okay, now as a salesperson, do you need a technical background to be able to successfully sell IT services?
No,
No.
actually, yeah, no. You need to be curious, and you need to be willing to look foolish in order to help your client. So it's okay to look like you don't know what you're talking about. And I know that's antithetical to everything else that probably most trusted advisors hear in the market. Everyone wants to be the expert generalist. Don't fall for that trap. Be okay asking the question, how can we help you here? Is there something you're looking for? Can we bring someone to talk to you about this? I check the ego at the door. As everyone on this call can tell, that I'm definitely not the expert in a lot of these topics, but you can be very, very successful and win, multi-million-dollar, $100,000 MRR deals by being curious and letting the client tell you where they're looking for help.
Okay. Here's a question that he says that his company has several relationships with other technology solutions brokers, and is wondering if Quest is part of that ecosystem, or if they can set up a partner agreement directly.
Yeah, so we've been in the channel for about 13 years. We started out as a value-added reseller and evolved into a managed service provider, and then and kind of built about on that practice. We signed our first technology service broker agreement back in 2015, when we got to know the agency world a little bit better. And yeah, so we are a supplier with 3 of the major technology service providers out there. So Telarus, Avant, and Intelisys are great partners of ours, and have amazing partners in their ecosystems, and we love working with those folks.
All right. How about building blocks? Are there certain building blocks that are desired more by clients in the current marketplace?
Yeah, well, so there's building blocks that are very competitive right now. So everyone is chasing cybersecurity. Everyone is chasing products around cybersecurity, and I think you're starting to see organizations needing help with prior investments that maybe haven't panned out exactly the way that they wish they would have. So one building block that we do it's not sexy, but a lot of people need help with it, is very, very simple patching and basic monitoring and alerting. Monitoring and alerting platforms, there are tons of, you can name the marketing term XDR, MDR, business intelligence, platform intelligence, analytics, micro, everything. Those are great products. People have spent a ton of money on them, but they're not necessarily getting the data back that they need. We saw Splunk recently get acquired by Cisco. Splunk is a magnificent, fantastic platform that can do all sorts of cool things for you, but very, very intense analytics, and you really have to tune that and make sure you're getting the most out of it. So it'll be exciting to see how that goes with the Cisco acquisition. But just monitoring, alerting, and getting people actionable data and actionable alert back, huge opportunity that a lot of people kind of pass over. Same with patching. I'd venture to say the majority of the people on this call, most of your clients are not up to date on their patching. And for whatever reason, it's going to break an existing application. They just don't have someone to stay up to date on it. But that's one of the biggest vulnerabilities we see in areas where organizations are okay out tasking that to a third party because it's a real pain point for them, and they haven't quite figured out how to maintain their patching.
Okay. As long as we were talking a little bit there about cybersecurity, does Quest offer cybersecurity risk mitigation with cyber insurance frameworks?
So we help a lot of organizations that are going through those cyber insurance frameworks and those policy renewals. Organizations in cybersecurity insurance providers got hit really, really hard in the 2020 to 2022 timeframe. So a lot of money got paid out. Renewals and those upgrades, those frameworks are getting pretty intense. And we help organizations close the gap when they get those requirements documents back. So we can either help them go through that policy review, right? So we can put a virtual CISO or a virtual security team in place to help them go through that. Or if they've already got the feedback back from their insurance provider, hey, you guys need to get multi-factor enabled, you need to get MDR enabled, you need to get 24/7 monitoring alerting enabled. Those are the gaps that they have before the insurance provider is going to come and help them. We can help execute on those. We can help either provide them products and services that meet those requirements, or we can provide those services ourselves for them with our components and help them go back to their insurance provider saying, hey, here's where I close the gap on that hole.
Okay. Now, early on in the presentation, Adam, you mentioned the lack of competency among tech workers relative to SMBs and the middle market. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, what needs to be done to correct that situation?
Well, if I knew that, that's a great question. I think organizations need to accept the fact that technology is moving very rapidly, and they need to bring in organizations that can help them across the spectrum, right? So it used to be an expert, you meet an IT director, and that person, they really have a skill set in, maybe they were a systems analyst, or maybe they were a security focused person, or maybe they were a system admin in the Microsoft world. Maybe they had a certain skill set, and they kind of got, hey, cool, you did XYZ job, now you got the whole boat. I think people need to bring in partners to help them execute and be honest with themselves about their level of competence. I think it's become a little bit more of the business critical. It used to be kind of, the IT director would come in the boardroom, give a briefing, and walk out, and no one really knew or cared what that person said. It was just like, okay, great, that was all speeds and feeds and geek speak. that's not the culture today, and it's not acceptable from a leadership standpoint. I think there needs to be a little bit of a leadership dynamic change where you're either going to value your data and how to secure it and how to manage it, or you're going to go away. I think there's going to be some hard lessons learned there.
Okay, let's just take a couple more questions and then go into the drawing for that $200 gift certificate. First, let's kind of put this question together as one. Is help available 24/7, and can we white label Quest solutions for our value offerings?
No, great question. Yeah, it is 24/7. So we have a follow the sun methodology for our security and network operations. We're headquartered in Northern California, then we go to the South Pacific, then back to Dublin, Ireland, and then back to the United States. It is 24/7. We don't, in the traditional model of white labeling, we don't white label monitoring, alerting, and escalation services in a traditional sense. We do have some service offerings that we provide to other VARs and other managed service providers. So, for example, we're a very large Veeam Cloud Connect partner. That's one of our offerings that a lot of other managed service providers will leverage that capability. We do some cybersecurity services for folks as a subcontractor. So we love partnering, and we put together agreements with other MSPs or other VARs that are maybe they don't have a cybersecurity practice yet, and we're happy to work with them on putting together an offering.
Okay, we'll do final question, and for our attendees that have asked questions that we have not gotten into, Quest will be answering them offline for you, or yeah. So last question, Adam, what are the main challenges that you see in selling integrated IT services?
Well, the biggest challenge is people will want to do line item cost comparison and try to break apart bundled offerings. That's the biggest challenge is in internal IT thinking that they can cover it themselves. That's honestly the biggest challenge. If you're dealing with someone who thinks that they got it covered and they got the world figured out and they just need to go buy XYZ server or XYZ compute from this vendor and buy this licensing SKU from this vendor and then go to Microsoft and buy that OS or the Office 365 licenses, and they're just going to build it together themselves. That they probably can for a certain period of time. The challenge that business owners and leadership needs to decide is, hey, how am I going to manage my company ongoing? That person who thinks they can do it themselves might be overestimating their longevity in that role, or how long they're going to stay around, or just their overall competence level, because things are changing all the time. Every component that individual buys and puts together in a service offering at that point in time, yeah, that person might have a good game plan, but those patches don't stop. The threats don't stop. The updates don't stop. The demands from that person's end users continually escalate. So how are you supporting remote people? How are you authenticating them? How are you managing them? It can quickly become overwhelming for organizations, especially in the SMB and some of the middle market players out there. It's just moving quickly, and I think everyone needs a team to support them.
All right, thank you very much. Adam Burke, the Quest Technology Management Vice President of Sales and Partnerships. We absolutely love the information you gave us today in the first part of a 6-part sales boot camp. You can register for the next episode, which is going to be scheduled for 1 p.m. Eastern Time, October 25th, when Adam is going to let us know how to sell cybersecurity services without being an expert. To register for that, you can go to our website at channelvisionmag.com. That registration page is open now. And now from all of us at Channel Vision Magazine, and for Adam Burke and our friends at Quest Technology Management, thanks for attending. Have a safe, prosperous day, and we will see you in November at CVX Expo 23. Thank you.